Hey everybody, Jesse here for 3Prong Gaming, and in this episode, episode 11, we are going to actually start placing the buildings in the world. And actually this is a different video. I had recorded episode 11 already, and it was something different. It was checking for overlap, but I want to give a shout out to Julian back on episode 9. He sent me a comment, good feedback on the tutorials, but mentioned, like I expected with most, this process of spawning the buildings and placing it was a little bit confusing. I know I've raced over the last couple of episodes trying to hurry up through this and trying to maintain my 30-minute videos, and because of that, I know it has been feeling rushed. So, and he also pointed out, you know, my workflow, and even though I'd already recorded episode 11, I realized that probably wasn't the proper workflow, so I really want to thank Julian. I appreciate it, and you got me thinking about it. So what I'm going to do is today we're going to place the building. Hopefully you should have enough time to get this all in without rushing too bad. There's not too much to do for just flat out spawning the buildings into the world, but what I'm going to do after we're able to spawn, if I can't do it in this, finish in this one with the spawning of the building and placing the building, then in the next episode we'll finish that up. But after we're done doing that, I plan on doing an overview video where we don't really build anything, but I will walk you step by step through the process of how everything is working, because I do know it's confusing. It still confuses me sometimes when I go through and look at it. You know, when I'm doing this project here, I've got my main project, but there's so much going on in there for me to keep focused on what the episode is going to be about. I've actually got another project that I do in preparation for the video, so it's just a step ahead of what we're doing in the video. And by the time I'm done with the video, I'm caught up to where that is. And so I'm always trying to stay one step up. So with that, in the last episode, we did make the mouse cursor, or the ghost building, follow the mouse cursor and move it around the world. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. And in that video, I did, you'll probably have seen the little message I put up there. I talked about good object-oriented programming, and at the end I failed to do that. Right here I set in the camera pawn controller, I set it to the custom world position in the ghost building blueprint. I set it manually like this, and that is not object-oriented programming. So let's fix that really quick. All right, let's go into the ghost building BP and click a new function. And I know this may seem kind of silly, but we'll call this set cursor position. This may seem kind of silly, but it really is good programming practice to do this. Let's call this cursor location. Hit enter. We will make it of type vector. Okay, so that's coming in. So grab our cursor world position, drag it in here as a set. That's Alt and drag it in. And then, bam, that's it. That's all we've got to do. And just to stay in decent practice, let's go ahead and do a return node. We don't need to return any values, but we'll just plug this in like this. Now, that's all we got to do for this. But by doing this and staying in this habit, whether we have to do it with this one or not, and naming it as a set, it will make it easier to make everything scalable. So if we ever have to come back and use this in a different blueprint, then we can. We don't have to remember anything other than set cursor position. All right, that is good practice. So what we'll do is we'll come back into the camera pawn controller, delete that variable, and then just drag off the ghost building reference, and then set cursor position. Just like that. We call the function, not the variable. Plug it all back in here, and then hook the location in. And that's it. That's object-oriented programming at its finest. All right. And there is one other thing I did update. There is a hot fix out, 4.9.1. I did update to that. They did fix the enum problem. So let's go back in here into get month. There it is right there. And let's just hook up our game date settings here. We can go ahead and delete this. And if you remember too, when we did this, I was kind of baffled by why this was printing a digit. I told you I was having problems. It was just displaying none, or I actually got it to display the month if it was an even number. It's because this right here, see, it says converts a byte value to a string. That's not what we want. We don't want that. I entered the wrong one. So we drag off of this, do toString, and see, this is what I selected, toString byte. That's not what we want. We want enum to a string. And that will give us what we have in the enum value. Drag that in there, place it, it'll automatically convert it to a text for us, and then clean this up. Move this in here. Let's head to the designer really fast. Go down here. Let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We could delete this slash right there, delete one of the spacers, and then go to this other slash, and let's change this back to a comma and just add a space afterwards and call that good. Compile it, save it, and real quick, just to make it go a little bit faster, my game state, I'm going to just change the hour variable to, let's say, 18, just so we can watch it, make sure it clicks over just fine. Now hit play and see December 31st. Clicks over January 1, year 2. Awesome. So that's what we want. See, we got the cursor to follow there. And that's good. So now let's go ahead and get this episode really started here. I know we're 6 minutes into it. Still shouldn't have to rush too bad. Close out my game state here. All right, camera pawn controller. We got this set up. Head back out of here. And let's go ahead and right click. We could probably set up an action mapping for this, but I'm not going to do that. We're just going to do it left. If at some point I want to set up an action mapping for the left mouse button, then I will. But right now I'm just going to leave it like this. It's going to make it a little bit easier, I think, in the long run, because left mouse button can be used for more things than just placing a building. So if we name this placing a building, then, you know, it could be confusing. So anyways, let's go ahead and drag off of this and throw a branch. We need a branch in here. Where is it? There it is. Branch. We need to make sure that we are in building mode active. All right. We will have more mouse functions, left mouse button clicks, like selecting, you know, the buildings and the characters and things like that. So we will eventually need a sequence in here, but we don't need that right now. So what we need now, after we do this, if we are in build mode, we actually need to do some things in the Ghost. But what we need first is we need to go into our main root folder, right click, let's add a new folder. Let's call this one Structs. Okay. Go in here. We're going to make our first data structure here. So select blueprints, structure. Let's go ahead and call this one construction struct. Okay. And if you're unsure what a struct is, it essentially is, if you're any familiar with programming, it's kind of like a multi-dimensional array. It's just a list of different variables that you can pass through. It'll hold all those variables, because in UE4 we don't have multi-dimensional arrays. This is about the closest you're going to get. Multi-dimensional arrays is something that holds multiple values that relate to each other. Okay, so in this construction struct, what we need to do is we need to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need to put in 5, so 2, 3, 4, 5. We need to put in 5 different variables. First one, let's call this one building class. Next one will be proxy class. Third one is transform. Next one will be display mesh. And last one, we'll call this one work hours required. All right, so now for building class, let's set its type to building master BP. Make it a make it a class, building master BP. We need it as a class. Proxy class, let's do construction proxy. Again, this one needs to be a class. Transform, just set this to a transform. Display mesh will be a static mesh reference. And then this last one, let's just make this a float. Okay, now all we're going to use this for is we're going to load these up with all these variables, so we don't have to pass one at a time. We could just pass the entire struct. And this work hour, this will come in handy. We're not going to do anything with it now, but this will dictate how long a particular building will take to construct based off of the hours, the clock that we created several episodes ago. All right, so let's go ahead and close this one and compile this really fast. Now we need to get the Ghost building reference. Going to the Ghost building, we need to create a new function. Again, sticking with the object-oriented programming. This is, it's a new function. This is just what we need to do. We'll build this in here. We'll call this get construction struct. Okay. And just like the name implies, we're going to get pretty much, because a struct consists of pretty much everything in here with the exception of work hours required, which may eventually end up being in here anyway. So we'll just end up passing it through here. So what we need to do is we need to make an output. The output will be, we'll call it construction struct, hit enter, and go up to here and type construction, and you'll see structure, select that. So it needs the return value of that. So drag off of this. Actually, we don't need to drag off of that. Let's just go make construction struct. There it is. Select that. We could just go ahead and plug that into the end for right now and expand this. So all we need to do is we need to take the building class. We need to drop it in there. Take our construction proxy, drop that in there. And while we're at it, I had a problem spawning while I was setting this up for this episode. I had a problem spawning. I kept getting errors. So while we're in here, one thing we need to do, it took me forever to figure this out. It took me about an hour to debug this, is we need to set the default value of that construction proxy. We need to set it to the only option available, construction proxy BP. Do that or you're going to get some errors. All right. So now we got that. So the transform, now what we need to do is we need to actually make transform. There it is. We need to make that. We'll just plug that into that right there. And we're going to have the ability to rotate the building. We're going to create that soon enough. So that we need to get actor locate. Where is it? Get actor location. Okay, so just plug that in the location of the make transform. And then get actor rotation. There it is right there. And then plug that into the rotation, and the scale is just fine. All right, so we got that. Now we need to take the display mesh, just plug that into there, and we'll just leave the work hours. You know what, I'll just leave it as 1 for now. Not a big deal. That would be 1 hour, but we're not going to worry about that till a little bit later. And that is done. So now let's go back into the camera pawn controller, and now if build mode is active, drag off of, not that, we need the ghost building reference. Drag that out here and get it. Now we need to get construction struct. Call that function we just created. Plug that into the true. All right. So now that will set up the structure for us. And then we can just output this. Now what we need to do to output this, though, before we could do that, we need to create another function. Now we need to go into our, what is it? We need to go into our construction manager. Construction, get the construction manager, open it up, and hit open full blueprint editor. Let's just go ahead and delete all these. Actually, I don't think we're really going to need any of those in this. We need to create a new function. We need to call this Q construction. All right. Now the input on this, we need to make it of construction struct, and of course type construction struct. Okay, so what we just got, we're going to pass through here. All right. So now when that's done, let's drag out of here. Let's break this, open this up. And we need to take the proxy class, actually, and drag off of there and do spawn actor from class. We're going to spawn the proxy blueprint with this, okay? And we're going to take the transform, plug it in there. Collisions, let's take collision, and we want to always spawn ignore collisions. All right, now one thing we need to do here is we need to pass this display mesh, okay? So we need to go into the proxy, construction proxy, go ahead and open it up and add a new variable. Let's call this display mesh, hit enter. Make it of type static mesh reference. There we go. And we could probably delete all that for now. We actually probably will need some of that, but display mesh right there. And we need to expose it on spawn. Expose, editable, compile it, and then jump back into the construction manager. Now we have that. So just plug that right on in there. We will eventually probably have to pass that through. We're not going to worry about that right now. So perfect, we got that done. Now we've actually got a few more things to do, but let's ignore that just for a second, try to keep this workflow straight. So now we come back into here, grab your construction manager, get it, drag off of this. Now we need to queue construction. All right, so now we plug all this in and then just drag off of that. And there we go. So now we never have to set a structure variable in here. That's part of the OOP. All right. Okay. So from that, what we need to do now is we need to kill the ghost reference. All right. So now we've constructed the building, and the ghost is dead because we've laid the building down. So go ahead and grab your ghost reference again, drag off of this, and just type kill ghost. And for now, that should be it in our camera, getting up there, in our camera controller. So compile it, save it. Let's jump back into, what do we need to do now? We need to go into our construction manager. Actually, let's go into our construction proxy. We need to create an event tick. So go ahead and type tick. And there's quite a bit of stuff we're going to have to do in here. Eventually we're going to have to add in all our working when we start doing construction and all that. But for right now, let's just keep this simple. We need to create an event dispatcher. Now they changed, this is part of where I discovered my issue, was they kind of changed how they did event dispatchers a little bit. The process is still ultimately the same. It's just a little weird, and they haven't updated their documentation about it yet. So let's call this one construction completed. And I will be doing a tips and tricks on event dispatchers, but for now, I'll just give you a brief overview of what they are. So, but on this one, real quick, just type a new input. We will call this proxy, and then make it of type construction proxy BP, make it a reference. All right. If you double click a event dispatcher, you can't do anything in here. You could do just like with an interface, you can add the inputs and outputs, but you can't do anything. So you read only. All right. So what we need to do now is go ahead and drag this new event dispatcher, and we want to call it. So just drag the event tick into here. And what we need to do is we need to send this proxy into there. So get a reference to self, and then just plug it right into there, because this is the construction proxy. We're going to have, there's a possibility, and more than likely you're going to have multiple of these construction proxies available. So it's important we got to pass this through. All right. So now the event dispatcher, what we do is you create the event dispatcher in the blueprint that needs to pass the information across here. So we call this right here. So what are we calling? Anything that's attached, that's bound to this event dispatcher will be called. So you can call many different blueprints as long as they're instantiated in the world. In other words, you have a live instance of it, like our construction manager, and that's exactly where we're going to put it. Then everything that is bound to it will be called. I'll go into more details in a tips and tricks, but for now, let's just go ahead and jump right into this. So in our event graph, let's create a custom event. Okay, because in order to bind it, you have to have a way to bind it. Typically, the way you want to bind it is through, like, you know, an event begin play or something like that. But construction proxy for us is, as soon as the game started, is created. So we don't want to bind it right away, because it's going to have to be bound for every instance of the construction proxy. All right. So bind construction complete is what we'll call this. Might be a little bit confusing just simply because, you know, we're going to be using the word bind for something else. We can name this whatever we want. We don't have to name it bind. I just did it for clarification. All right, so we need a new input. We'll call this proxy and make it, you guessed it, construction proxy BP, make it a reference. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to drag off this construction proxy, and do bind. We don't want to call the bind in the class because we'll just be coming back to this one. What we need to do is we need to go down to under default, bind event to construction completed. All right, that will bind it to that call, the event dispatcher that we just created over here in the construction proxy, construction completed. Okay, so now this is where they kind of changed it. I think you can still run it the old way, but this is how they've done it in 4.9. I would assume they're going to start deprecating the old way. So you come in here, you drag off the event right there, and under event dispatcher, you click create event. Okay, now right now we have no other event to call. You select this. The only thing we have in here that matches the blueprint is the bind right there, and that's not what we want. So we need to create a new one, custom event, and let's just call this one construction completed. Hit enter, and we need to add an input here. It's already set to construction proxy, so we'll just name it proxy, set to construction proxy BP. All right, and then compile it so it can see it. Yes, we get the errors right there. But now we need to go construction completed. All right, and it selects this event that we just created. I think they ultimately just did this because you used to have to bind it to it and drag it straight to it, and it made for really messy blueprints. So I think they just did this so you can kind of clean it up a little bit. So now this has a signature. It's got the proxy. If we didn't add this input, it still wouldn't see it right there. It's got to have the same signature as far as the inputs as the event dispatcher. Okay, so now from this, we need to create a new function. We will call this one finish construction. We're 22 minutes into this, so we're running a little bit behind this. I'm trying not to rush through this, so you know, it may run over 30 minutes. I'd like to get this all into one episode. So in our finish construction, add new input. Again, it's already set to construction proxy BP as a reference. So let's just call this proxy. Okay, this is what we're going to be passing in. We need to create two new variables here. Let's call this one proxies because it's going to be of type construction proxy BP reference, but we're going to make it an array. All right, and then come down here, add a new variable. Let's call this one Q, and we will make it of type construction struct. Leave it as an array also. Hit compile, save it. All right, so drag out this proxy array, get it. What we need to do is we need to, off of this, we need to find item, all right? And remember, we're in the construction manager. This is persistence. This is why we have an array. We're going to continually update this every time we spawn a new building into the, or whenever we lay a new building in the world. It's going to fill this, and it's going to constantly be updated, adding and subtracting from it. So it's important that we have this as an array. This is always constant. So we need to find this particular proxy that we're passing into it. Okay. And then what we need to do is let's right click that, promote to a local variable, and we will just call it index. This is just keep it a little cleaner for us, keeping the node graph here a little organized. All right. So from our queue, drag that in as a get. And then we need to get out of that array this index. Okay, because they're going to be the same, because we're going to be adding into the proxy at the same time we're adding into the queue. So they should always be in the same index. That's why we're doing this. Typically you may not want to do that, but we know for a fact these are going to have the same index because we're going to add them at the same time when we spawn a building, and we're going to remove them at the same time when we spawn a building. So what we need to do is we need to promote this to another variable, another local variable. Let's call this one just config, hit enter. It's already set to construction struct for us because we promoted off of this pin, and it knows that's what it is. So we will set that. Okay, so now we need to drag off this queue again. Let's type in remove index. Drag that up here, plug it in. Let's add a reroute now, just kind of keep it a little straight so you can see what's going on. And then the index we need to remove will be the one we just set. All right, so plug that into there like so. All right, now we need to Drag off of this proxy, type remove again from index. Add a reroute node just to keep it nice and clean. We'll just drag it up underneath here for now. That looks good. Drag the index. We need to remove this same index and then plug these in together. All right, so now it's going to go through. I'll explain this more in the overview, but now we're going to go through. We're going to find these instances and we're going to remove them from our variables because we no longer need to keep track of it. All right, so go ahead and drag your config out here. We need to get it. And that's why we set it up here, because we're removing it, but we still want an instance of it. But we only need it locally because it'll be destroyed once this is all done. All right. So drag off of this and type break construction struct. Now just open this up. Now take your building class and go spawn actor from class. Let's just go ahead and hook in the execution real fast. And then just plug in the rest of these. Ignore the proxy class. Just hit the transform. And we don't need any display mesh. It already knows what it is through the building class because the building class is already set up with the variable. And we don't need to pass a controller reference to it. So that is it. So now we need to destroy the proxy. So just drag off of this, type destroy actor. And the actor we want to destroy, we could probably leave it as self, but just to ensure we're going to get what we need, let's drag off of the proxy that we passed in. All right. Pull it out and just plug it into the actor we want to destroy. Add some reroute nodes real quick so we can make it stay nice and pretty. All right. And there we go. That's it. So we find the index of the proxy where it's at, then we find it, we get it out of the queue, we set it into a local variable, then we remove those from both of our arrays, and then we spawn our building, and then we destroyed the proxy because the proxy is no longer needed at this point. So compile it and save it. And now let's go back into the queue construction. All right, so now we still haven't put anything into those variables yet. So let's go ahead and do that now. First, we need to drag off of here and we need to go bind construction complete. This is the custom event that we ended up setting. If we do call functions, target is construction manager BP. So that will call from the event graph. It will call this right there. All right. And what we need to pass to it is the actor we just spawned. Plug it into there. All right. And then let's slide this up a little bit and drag off of the return value here. And let's do add. Actually, we don't want to do that. Let's drag the proxy right here. Get it. Select add right there. Let's plug it in. And now the item that we want to add to it is what we just created right there. Okay. Call that good. And then we also need to drag in our queue. Set that there as a getter. We need to add right there. And then come back here to the struct that we passed into the queue. And that's what we want to add in. So again, a couple reroute notes so we can keep it somewhat visually clean. There it is. All right. And then plug this in to the execution. And we should be good to go. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. We're 29.5 minutes into it. Let's go ahead and test it. Hit play. Cross your fingers that this is going to work. Spawn our building. It follows us around. Left click and see it doesn't work. What did I do wrong? Bind event. See, having problems binding the event to the construction node. This is the problem I had just a minute ago. It's because we didn't do anything with it. All right. So what we need to do with it is we need to pull out our finished construction and plug in the execution, take the proxy, put it in there, and now that should work. All right. And of course it's not. I'm still not calling it. Okay, I figured it out. Sorry about that. I had to cut away there. I didn't want to re-record this episode because it was pretty decent up to this point. I told you back in the Ghost BP, we needed to set the default value of the construction proxy BP to construction proxy BP. That's not where we need to do it. You can just leave that as none. All right, so compile and save. That was in the Ghost building BP. We need to go into the building master in the construction proxy that we have right there. And we need to change that default value to construction proxy. Compile, save it. That was the error I was getting. It took me forever to figure that out. So now spawn it, follows it around. Now we can place the building into the world. Spawn any one and as many as you want, and that is great. Now, like I said, the last episode I did overlap. See, right now we can overlap pretty much everything that we want, and that's going to be an undesirable effect, but that's not a big deal. That's actually a pretty easy fix. So in the next episode, actually, it'll be the next video I'm going to put out will be the overview. All right, so I can explain in more depth of what's going on without being rushed trying to get a bunch of code done. Okay, and then the next actual episode that we'll do the overlap checks and get that done. That'll probably be about a 20-minute video, so that'll be relatively short and sweet. And then after that, we will, looking ahead, we'll do some slope calculations so that you can't place any of your meshes if it's on a slope. And yeah, so we'll get to that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope I broke it down a little bit better for you. Again, thank you, Julian. I appreciate it. Any feedback you guys have for me, let me know, and I will do what I can to look into it and help you guys out and do whatever I need, whatever I can. Check out one of the other videos we're playing on the screen, and until next time, peace.